How does he
Yeah.
specifically work the system to his advantage?
Donald Trump is sort of masterful at working the system to his advantage. And I say in the book, I don't know if it's by design or just by instinct. Some people just have a knack for things. He utilizes all of those things that we've discussed. He utilizes certainly intimidation, fear. I mean, look at, for example, when he was impeached the second time, 10 Republican members of Congress voted yes on impeachment of him, and Trump vowed revenge. You know how many of them now survived and are still in Congress? 2 of the 10 have survived because he knocked out all the others, either by primary challenges or just by disparaging them. He uses intimidation against witnesses, against jurors, against prosecutors, even judges he has gone after publicly. He certainly uses his money. We talked about paying for other witnesses. During the January 6 hearings this last year, you may remember there was a young woman, a White House aide named Cassidy Hutchinson, who testified. Very explosive testimony, very damning to Donald Trump. She was not able to come forward and fully testify until she got away from the lawyer who Trump's people had assigned to her and paid for. So that's another example of that. The other thing that Trump is really, really good at that really brought to mind mob bosses is knowing how to insulate yourself, knowing how to only talk to certain people, and knowing how to say just enough so that your meaning is clear without quite explicitly saying, I need you to commit this crime. And I give examples of that from both sides in the book.
Yeah, sure. But look, I mean, these are all, I mean, unlike putting a sort of horse's head in somebody's bed, these are all legal routes that exist. So it would be odd for somebody not to use them. So, I mean, presumably, I mean, this is what you'd expect him to do, right?
Well, some of them are legal, some of them are illegal, even short of the horse's head routine. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that I argue in the book is that prosecutors and we in the public need to be able to recognize these tactics when we see them. And then that will better enable us to identify them. But more importantly, prosecutors to counteract them. I mean, I give a story in the book on the point I was making about saying just enough, but not quite saying it explicitly. I open the book with the story of a mob boss we prosecuted for murder based on him saying only the following: do what you have to do. Do what you got to do. Now, that's not go kill him, but we argued that in the mob context, given this guy's pattern and given what they understood in that culture, that was entirely clear. That's a tough case to make. We didn't get the best result, but we did get some justice. I don't want to give away a good story in the book totally. But Trump does the same thing. I mean, look at the January 6th riots. He said, be there, will be wild, right? And that was his tweet. And then he stands in front of the crowd and he says, he doesn't say, I want you to go down to the Capitol and smash windows and assault police officers, but he said, you got to show strength. We got to show them what we mean. And you know how you know that those people understood him to say that? A bunch of them have been prosecuted, the people who stormed the Capitol, and they've said in court in their cases, well, I understood. My understanding was Trump was telling us to storm the Capitol, to sack the Capitol. So he's a very good, subtle communicator.
And so, look, I mean, to round off then, where are we now in terms of the likelihood of him being, well, I mean, indicted, charged, convicted, whatever? What's the situation?
I think it's virtually certain that he will be indicted this week. In fact, Donald Trump just sent out a Truth Social saying he's been told he'll be indicted on Tuesday of this week on the hush money payments, which is a strange charge to lead with. This will be brought by...
This goes back to Stormy Daniels.
Yes.
Yeah.
6.5 years ago, the middle of 2016, which is ancient by prosecutorial standards. I've actually said several times on air, I do not think this is a particularly strong case, especially now. The federal prosecutors I write about in the book passed on charging Donald Trump for this. They didn't think that the evidence was quite strong enough, and they thought that the conduct was fairly benign in comparison to some of his other conduct. But now it looks like Donald Trump will be indicted very, very soon, virtually certainly on that case. But I think that's a problematic case. It looks fairly likely that he will be indicted by Georgia state prosecutors as well for trying to interfere with the election. That looks likely to happen around May for reasons that are sort of arcane grand jury related reasons, but that looks likely in May or June. And then there's still the United States Department of Justice, which is the most powerful prosecutor, which is investigating Donald Trump for classified documents and for the January 6th insurrection attempt. We don't know where DOJ is. That's the one that's really, to me, a guessing game and a coin toss. But I do think that within a few months, Donald Trump will be under multiple indictments. But as I say repeatedly in the book, an indictment is just the start of the race. It is not the end. And convictions in both of those cases will be very difficult. And ultimate imprisonment of Donald Trump, I think, is highly unlikely.